this is Silvia Pavoni, investment editor of The Banker. I'm reporting from the last day of the Felaban meetings, and I'm talking to Jaime Rivera, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Bladex, the Panama-based who specializes in trade finance. Mr. Rivera, we were just talking about which of the various themes you think was the overriding topic on the minds of attendees of this year's Felaban, and you said that Europe was at the top of people's agenda. Could you elaborate a bit further on this?
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, Sylvia, thank you, and thank you to the banker for giving us a chance to have an interesting conversation. Historically, it's been the case that every Felaban conference has an overriding theme, something that is mostly or keeps people mostly top of mind. And this year, it seems to have been, in fact, it was the situation in Europe, sovereign debt and the European banks. That seems to be the hot topic of conversation, mostly because it represents a risk to the economy of the world, the growth in Europe, the growth in the United States, availability of funding for the financial system. Whatever goes on in the European Union, an economy as large as the United States, will impact everybody in the world. So it is a source of concern.
And what is the direct impact, if any, on Bladex operations?
The direct impact is likely not going to be. I will assume that the situation will be resolved in a good manner. It'll probably take a while to be resolved, but I will assume that the European situation will eventually find a reasonable solution. If that is the case, the direct impact on our operations is not likely to be very large. Latin America's exports are pretty well diversified. In very round numbers, 25% of them go to Europe, 25% of them go to the NAFTA group of countries, 25% go to Asia, and the other 25% are traded within Latin America. So while I am sure that the trade figures for Latin America will be impacted, the direct impact on our business will not be significantly or not will be particularly strong. We do get funding from Europe, but most of the funding that we get is medium-term in nature. So I expect that by the time that funding matures, the European problem will have been resolved one way or another. So no, again, on Bladex there will be a little direct impact.
So we'll try to keep upbeat and optimistic. Now, one of the other main topics was the economic slowdown of China. And I'm seeing a growing number of Chinese banks participants at Felaban. What is the feeling that you have about this concern over the Latin American banks' operations? And have you been talking to Chinese banks? We just heard a panel discussion on renminbi settlements, and there were 3 Chinese banks, of course, on the panel. So what is your overall feeling on the relationship between Latin America and China and the effects of the economic slowdown of China on Latin America?
It's, again, by the way, I'm on the minority in what I'm going to state. I think that the impact of any significant slowdown in China would be mostly a second-order effect rather than a primary-order effect. While if you take a look at Latin America's trade figures, our trade with China comprises only about 9% of the overall trade of Latin America. It's a relatively small portion. The significant part of it is that it's growing at about 45% per year. According to the latest numbers released for I think it was second quarter of this year, it is growing very fast, but it's still relatively small. It is true that it is not the same in every country. China is now the main trading partner in Chile, and it's also the main trading partner for Brazil. So for some countries it is more important than others, but in general, for the region as a whole, China, while important, is not critically so. Our 48% of our trade is still with the United States. However, a slowdown in China would have a direct and significant impact on the prices of commodities. Commodity prices are these days driven by Chinese demand. if China was not to have a soft landing and commodity prices were to quote-unquote collapse, that would have a significant impact in Latin America because commodities, as you know, constitute a good portion of our exports. And that's what's been allowing the region over the last 15 years to improve its terms of trade to the point that it has allowed us to grow steadily, increase wealth, allocate more money for social programs, etc. If prices of commodity were to come down, that would have an impact. That all having been said, we've been working with Chinese banks now for a number of years. While we don't claim to be experts in China, we do know the Chinese government and the Chinese business organizations. I'm a firm believer in the Chinese government's ability to make sure that a soft landing does happen. They need that because of political reasons. There's an internal election coming up in the Chinese Communist Party soon. 1, 2, they simply cannot afford to grow so slowly that they will stop absorbing creating the number of jobs that they need to generate in order to keep social peace in their country. Thirdly, they have the means. They have the financial means to support continued growth for as long as necessary to make sure that the landing that occurs is in fact soft. So while the impact on Latin America of a hard landing would be worrisome, I don't think that's the most likely scenario. I'm fairly confident that the most likely scenario is a soft landing, and that therefore the prices of our commodities will remain relatively stable, with ups and downs. Like commodities are a volatile business by definition, but over time, I believe that the prices will sustain themselves, and that will continue fueling the region's growth.
Mr. Rivera, thank you very much for your comments.
No, on the contrary, Silvia, it was a pleasure.